We're going to see Matthew 22 and 34. Go ahead.
But when the Pharisees had heard that he had put the Sadducees to silence.
See, he had to put all these religious denominations to silence. See, when you got the truth, you would do that. That's what Jesus did. Because they was all coming at him. They got together on him. Now, they couldn't agree themselves. But see, if everybody lying, then they can get together. And even though they got different lies, it don't matter. They lying. So they can get together and have a conference together and all of that. But see, that's why they got together on him. Because he was telling the truth on all of them. So when the Pharisees, that's one denomination, heard that he had put the Sadducees to silence, that's another religious denomination, they were gathered together. They said, look, we got to deal with them. We can catch them in something. Go ahead, 35.
Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question.
Now he real smart in the Bible, supposedly. You know, just like preachers today, they get themselves big titles, reverend, doctor, all these lofty titles that don't mean nothing. Just like people that asked me before, well, where you go to school at? Nowhere. I just had somebody that taught me the Bible and read the Bible for myself. I didn't go to no seminary school. Didn't need to. Don't need no title. That's why don't nobody call me reverend or nothing. Hey, Elijah is fine. But they did that. They had all the titles. That's why I called him then one of them, which was a lawyer. That means he was a scholar, supposedly. So he's, he going to step up. He's real smart. He asked him a question saying what? What did he say?
Tempting him and saying.
Oh, he tempted him. That's what the question is about. What?
Master.
Got the nerve to call him master, but he really don't believe, obviously. Master, what?
Which is the great commandment in the law?
Which is the great commandment in the law? Go ahead.
Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind.
Wait a minute. Now you mean the great commandment in the law? He asked Jesus about the law, which people want to do away with. But the greatest commandment in the whole Bible, in the law, is about love, isn't it?
That's right.
So how are we going to think that love is a new concept in the New Testament when he's talking about the law in the Old Testament? He said, which is the great commandment in the law? Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. And that's just not something that you're going to throw around talking about, singing about loving, or talking about loving. Now, love has to be exhibited, right?
That's right.
It has to be exhibited. And he's telling you how far you have to go exhibiting, isn't it? That's real strong, and most of us won't pay attention to that. But that's saying a whole lot. If you tell somebody, you need to love me with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. That ain't a little bit of love, is it? He want it all, don't he? This is what the Lord's saying. And we still don't understand that concept. See, people lie today. They are lying. You know what I'm talking about? They lying when they say, Lord, just do your will. Just make me, mold me, shape me. Just do. They don't mean that though. Because they don't want to do nothing. The Lord said, don't eat pork. You don't want to be molded that way, do you? The Lord said, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. The Lord said, don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't commit idolatry. People don't really mean that. They don't want to be molded like the Lord He's trying to mold you in the scripture. But people don't want to listen. But he's telling you, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. Verse 38.
This is the first and great commandment.
Oh, this Jesus talking, right? So the first and great commandment is about love, isn't it?
That's right.
That's why the title is Love and Life. We ain't touched on life yet. We're going to get to that too. Love and life embodied in God's law. Can we see that right here? In the law. Go ahead, verse 39.
And the second is like unto it.
And the second, now he didn't ask for the second, but Jesus knows it's a package deal. So he said, I can't leave this one out. He said, which is the great commandment in the law. It's a package deal. The first is loving the Lord with all your fiber, in essence. The second is like unto it, what?
Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself.
Oh, the second one is about loving each other. So it can't be new if it's in the law about loving one another, right?
Right.
See, that's what you got to understand what Jesus meant when he said, a new commandment I write unto you. Wasn't that new, was it? It was just new as far as the example went that he gave. That's it. But it wasn't new because he'd go right here. He knew that. He said, and the second is like unto it, thou shalt love your neighbor as yourself. Don't you know that's saying a whole lot? That's a mouthful right there. Because we have a tendency, the flesh want to put yourself first all the time. It don't even matter what somebody else's considerations are. That's how the flesh is. What he telling you, you have to have the mindset of loving people as you love yourself. Because you would give yourself the benefit of the doubt. I said this before. You make mistakes. You know you make mistakes. You'd have made mistakes and been mad at yourself, but you give yourself a break, don't you, unless you're real crazy. I heard people say, boy, I messed up so bad I could have kicked myself in the butt. But I ain't never seen them even attempt to do it. Unless they crazy. So you would give yourself the benefit of the doubt every time, right? But we don't have that same love for our neighbor. Sometimes we want to burn them up in the fire for making a mistake. But he said, the second is like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Verse 40.
On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets.
See, on these two commandments. Now they're about love, right? All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. So that's why the title is Love and Life Embodied in God's Law. Because when you break any law, it applies to one of these commandments. Any law can fall under, it's going to fall under one of these. Either you have done something, you have not loved God as you should have by doing something offensive to him. And it's all offensive to him, whether it's against him or your neighbor. But it's directly offensive to him in some cases, or it's directly offensive to your neighbor in the other cases. So that's why all the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. But now let's go further. We're going to read it from another example, Mark, the 12th chapter. This is pretty much the same take on it, but he's going to say something else and lead us to where we're going next. Mark 12 and verse 28. That's amazing, though, that Satan has convinced people that God's holy law, which spells out love to the T, is not needed no more. And we just make up we can just go for what we know, make up our own concept of love. Look, you're not going to get life that way, brothers and sisters. Mark 12 and 28. Mark 12 and 28. Okay, go ahead.
And one of the scribes came, and having heard them reasoning together, and perceiving that he had answered them well, asked him, which is the first commandment of all?
See, now this is the same take on the same situation. Which is the first commandment of all? I just read this for another reason because Jesus had said a little more here. Go ahead.
And Jesus answered him, the first of all the commandments is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord.
See, he had added this. That's why you can get more information in different places. That's why we got all of this Bible. He had added this, which is showing you, brothers and sisters, this is a direct quote of the Old Testament that people want to get away from. All that old law done away with. You tell people, say, well, do you got to keep the law? No, that's done away with. Once Jesus came, he brought grace. He brought the law of love. That's all we got to do. Look, you have fooled yourself. Jesus quoted right here. The man asked him, which is the first commandment of all? The great commandment. And Jesus said the first of all the commandments is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. See, that's the beginning of that. All that is a part of that commandment, that first commandment. That's the beginning of loving the Lord. Because the first thing he's telling you to hear, and who he's telling, he started with Israel. And it's for everybody. It's for all nationalities who will believe, but it do start with Israel. That's why Jesus was Israel. That's why he said he was only sent to Israel. He did say he had some other sheep, he going to bring them later, but he started with only Israel. So that's why he quoted the whole thing here. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. See, it's not multiple gods. Therefore, it's not multiple ways to please him. It's not one way for the Methodists and one way for the Baptists and one way for the Catholics, one way for the Jehovah's Witness, one way for the Seventh-day Adventists. No, it's only one way for everybody. We all got to come the same way. We just got to figure it out, and it's all over the Bible. As far as what we're talking about today, loving, we got to keep God's law to love and get life. Period. Everybody needs to have that same understanding. But most of the denominations that I mentioned, really all of them, they done away with that concept, right? In one way or another, they done away with it. So that's why they fit the people questioning Jesus here. But go ahead. He said the first of all commandments, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord, and what? 30.
And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength.
Even through strength in here, just in case you don't understand. And with all your, that's a lot of all, isn't it? Go ahead.
This is the first commandment.
This is the first commandment. But then he give them the whole story. Go ahead, verse 31.
And the second is like, namely this. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself.
Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Go ahead.
There is none other commandment greater than these.
See, there's none other commandment greater than these, but they're about love, right?
That's right.
From the Old Testament. So don't let nobody fool you and make you think you got a different way, a type of love now. They fooling you. And you could do away with the law. Let's go back to the Old Testament now that we done set the foundation. See, the old scriptures were for my New Testament Christians. Because they don't even think it matters to go to the Old Testament. A lot of them. People want to do away with the Old Testament. Look, you got to be a Bible follower, a Bible Christian, a Bible believer, whatever you want to call it. You got to deal with the whole Bible. Deuteronomy 6. And we're going to pick it up at verse 4. Deuteronomy 6, and we're going to pick it up at verse 4. Deuteronomy 6 and verse 4. Now, this is for my old school Hebrews. They like the Old Testament. But we know you need the whole Bible. Deuteronomy 6 and verse 4. Go ahead.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord.
That's a direct quote that Jesus was quoting, wasn't he?
Right.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. Go ahead.
And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might.
So now, this is what Jesus quoted from. Jesus didn't make up love, did he? In Mark, or Matthew, or Luke, or John. Love was not a new concept then, was it?
No, sir.
Love was love in Deuteronomy, wasn't it? We've been commanded to love one another, haven't we? Nothing new. Well, right here he's talking about loving the Lord. Well, we've been commanded to love from the Old Testament, from the law, right? Let's go to Leviticus 19. Let's make sure they knew to love one another. Leviticus 19. See, we got to get straight on this before it's too late. Because bad stuff happening every day. People dying every day, and they dying without the knowledge of what God wants them to know in the Word.